So we'll have a go at painting this scene. It looks quite complicated, but we'll start with just the main elements of the painting, and I'm going to make up a lot of it, and I find it's a lot easier as long as you get the rough idea of what's there. You know, what is actually there is just random shapes, and that's all we need to paint. So let's give it a go. So where's the rest of the drawing, you ask? Well, what's important is here. I've got the structure of the boat, the hull. Now, just with that shape there, we can see it's a boat. We've got a large shape here, which is all this is doing is acting as a bit of a stop on this side of the painting, and also giving it a bit of structure. And the reason I haven't drawn all these little fiddly bits is because I want to try and keep this a simple demonstration that a beginner can have a go at, and we'll just paint all of this freely. We're not going to try and replicate every little shape here. We just need to put something there. That's all we need to do. This is 7.5 inches by 11 inches. Welcome to my watercolour channel, and on this channel I want to help you paint loose watercolours, but not just paint them with confidence. So hit that like and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you get all my videos, and I share a lot of videos. And if you want to go a step further, I've got a website with membership. On this membership you get access to all the reference photos. We've got a members forum, so a community of like-minded artists who want to achieve similar goals to yourself. So let's get on with the video, and good luck if you decide to give it a go. Let's just stain the paper at the top here with a bit of very watery yellow ochre. Well, I think that was actually cadmium yellow. There's all sorts mixed in there. You know, really it doesn't matter about the colour. Just a yellow. I'll go a little bit darker along the top, and maybe just a small touch of red. This is all very, very watery stuff. To warm it up here, we can bring that all the way down. We'll go a bit of cerulean blue. Careful that yellow, we don't want to make green. Got some blue over this side. We'll just paint that into there. Bring that across, and don't worry about matching the exact colours I've got here. It really doesn't matter. We just want a light value, and I quite like the play of warm and cool in the sky here, so that's what I'm looking to have a go at. But just water here, and the reason for that is to create light. And then back in with that blue, maybe a bit of cobalt blue, and then just bring that up to there. I'll leave a little bit of sparkle, so most of that's going to be covered, and I'll just go slightly darker in the foreground. So don't want to add any more water because I don't want to water it down, but let's just go a little bit darker here, but wet into wet. And that's it, that's the first wash done, and already it looks atmospheric. While I'm waiting for that to dry, let's squeeze out some fresh paint. Now, if you are a beginner, you might well have just tiny little bits of paint in your palette because you don't want to waste it. It's a bad move. Plenty of paint. Get a palette with a lid on. There's plenty out there, they're not expensive. Paint regularly. Have good habits of turning up to your easel daily. So, plenty of paint in there. We'll have a bit of design crimson as well. Really hot in here today. Let's give it a spray. So we're back on to dry paper. It would have been nice to paint these distant buildings wet into wet, but you know, we're trying to keep this as a beginner demo, and we would have had issues with it running down and spreading out and so on. So let's look at another way we can do it. So we're on dry paper. If I take my spray bottle, if I just float a little bit of mist here, not too much. And then take some of this, just needs to be a light blue colour, not overly saturated, so we can add a bit of brown in there to grey that off. Quite watery, because we don't want it too dark in value, because this is just stuff off in the distance. So because I made the paper wet, we're going to get a soft edge there. And what I want to do is just make up shapes. That's a building off in the distance, there's a tower there maybe, it really doesn't matter. But I've just posted a painting of a pier on YouTube, not the actual demo, just the painting, to try and entice people to join the membership. And one of the comments was, you know, it was incredible the amount of detail. But those of you who've watched that demo, I didn't paint any detail, it's all an illusion. And that's exactly saying what's going on here. So because I splashed some water on here and I can just manipulate it into there, you know, we've lost the edges there and we've just got very soft edges here. So we're just going to pull that across here. There's the water's edge. Again, just make it all up. Some masts of boats and things. More buildings. You know, just, it really doesn't matter. Keep that light actually above the boat there. And if anything, you know, you just want interesting shapes, abstraction. It's just good variety of edges as well. So again, I'm just going to use water just to soften that, also soften that edge there, and I'll just use water just to bring that down to nothing. A lot of that's all going to be painted over. Let's take care of these shapes here. Again, I've got, it's you know, the docks or something like that. Lift a bit of paint off. So if I just rinse my brush off, just dry the brush off, and then I can just take some paint off. The more abstract, the better we make it there. So let's just put just a small touch of red into that mix there, which will just create a grey. And we can put some, while this is all still damp, another layer of depth there. More stuff off in the distance. So we can dry that off now, because we want to start creating some hard edges. And your shapes can be anything, it doesn't really matter, as long as you've got a slightly darker value than the sky with some soft edges. That's all what matters. You know, I haven't got anything that looks like the reference here. So let's work on this area over here. So we can use a bit of red, a bit of brown, just to warm things up. Take a bit of that just to grey it off a little bit. So just a warm reddy grey, and because we've got dry paper now, or dryish paper, we'll get a hard edge there. Still a little bit damp there, so I should make sure it's dry properly. You know, and take your time doing this. Now really think about what we're doing. I'm trying to break it down to simple steps. So we can again put a shape here. It doesn't matter what your shape is or my shape is. You know, I can't even see what that is there. It's just maybe boxes, shipping stuff. And a vertical there. And we can leave a little bit of a highlight from that wash underneath. We can put something there off in the distance. You know, an artist in the past, masters have done this all the time. They've just put something there. Doesn't matter what it is. It's just a dark shape against the light shape. We can lose some of the edges again. We can connect that up. And I'm just using a brush that's just clean. Take the moisture off and just manipulate it there. Connect it up. Again, it's just adding a bit of atmosphere. So let's have a go at painting this boat. A bit of red, a bit of blue. So we want stronger paint now because we've got quite a dark shape here. So a bit of, put in there, a bit of yellow. So we just want a dark. It doesn't really matter about the colour, but the dark does. So we've got the shape that we drew. So let's just put that in. So we'll follow those lines fairly accurately. We'll bring it down to the water's edge there. I'll just clean my brush off. And I'll just put water here because this side of the boat is a little bit lighter in value. I'll take some neutral tint, make this darker here. And it's important while the boat here is wet that we paint the side of the dock here. So we can just make that dark. While we've got thick paint there, we can scratch out a bit of detail maybe. Back in with the red. And before the boat dries, let's just paint that dark into there along the bottom. And we're going to then paint, take some red, a bit of yellow, just to vary the tone. So we've got tie-off points on here, ropes and things. It's just make that slightly not such a straight line. Let it all run down, let watercolour do its thing. Keep the boat wet here. Now this bead is what we want because we're going to use that to paint these reflections. So straight into there. So the side of the boat is a nice crisp edge, but these reflections are going to be more abstract and suggesting the movement of the water. And we'll leave a few little bits of light, but all of this has to be painted at the same time. And we're going quite dark with this because this is our contrast. And we're going to paint what's going on above. We haven't painted it yet, but we know we're going to have a mast here. And I did draw that bit in, so we know we've got that in the right sort of place. That looks okay. Before it dries, if I just again rinse my brush off, take off the moisture, I can just lift off a little bit of light on the side of the boat. Creating that sort of rusty metal look. Okay. Lift up a little bit here as well. This is just with a thirsty brush. That needs to come down a bit further. And just get it right. to try and do that while it's all still damp. So we can just a bit of neutral tint on its own, nice strong thick paint, and I'll just put in a dark at the base there as the boat meets the water. I do all this while it's damp. Bit of the structure of the boat. I'm just going to dab that a little bit. All that red in there, I think. But the important thing is all just connection. So it's now at the stage where we need to just let that dry. So we've got strong contrast, light against dark. This is probably our centre of focus. So let's take some pyrrole orange, a bit of yellow. Let's mix all that together. Some strong colour there. So this all looks very complicated, what's here, this part of the boat, but is it really? Let's just have a look. What have we got? We've got an oblong across there. And then there's another oblong with perhaps a little bit of a gap for a highlight. And then there's another one there. We've got the mast. Break that up so we get a broken line there, so it's not too solid. Add a bit of neutral tint. And we'll put a dark in there, which perhaps is a window. A few windows. Leave a little bit of light to come through. Again, perhaps just lift a bit of paint off with that thirsty brush. Take some of that darker tone. And what have we got? We got something there. And if you are a beginner having a go at this, you know, does your rigging have to be perfect? No, you just need to practice watercolour. Doesn't matter the success of the painting, you're just painting, practicing. A few uprights. Ropes and aerials and whatever else on the boat here. Let's add a bit of blue, as we've got some orange there, nice complementary colours. Side of the boat there. And into it. A little bit of detail. Fishing equipment or whatever. Just make it up. So we can work over this side, basically do the same, but we need even less detail. So I'll add a bit of red. So that, a bit of blue. We want a fairly muted colour still. So let's draw the boat shape. So it's important to get that accurate because that's what tells us it's a boat. Just bring it to about there. And now if we just take perhaps some lavender, let's give that a go. Which will create a bit of mistiness. Really watery. Just let it run into there and create this bead. And just let the bead sit there. Don't have too much bead because it will just run down by itself. We can perhaps put a boat off in the distance there. Again, just abstract random shapes. It doesn't really matter what it is. And then we'll have a bit of that blue, a touch of yellow, more blue. That you could use turquoise if you've got some, but it's made a turquoisey colour. And I'll paint that boat into this one. And then I'll add a load of blue into there to make my reflection, a bit of red. I've got a dark purple. So hopefully you're enjoying this video. Please do hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out the links in the description if you want to join me on memberships to take your watercolours to the next level. Dark in there. Just clean my brush off so it's just damp, and I'll just pull that, leave a little bit of a gap on the side of that boat, and there's the reflections for that boat, and I'll just bring that down. Take it the dark, we can just paint some windows there. And where I left that sort of lighter area there, that's painting the part of the boat there. Again, it's just stuff off in the distance, doesn't matter what it is. And if you have a few uprights and things, it's going to look like a boatyard. Some more of that orange. There's another boat there which we can use to sort the shape of that one out. Just dab it with a tissue, make it look further away. And this painting will look really complicated, you know, and I'm not trying to make it complicated, but if you know, watch the demo from start to finish first, you'll see, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be. I'm just painting shapes, trying to keep it simple, and you don't have to do all these little effects that I've got in here, you know, just do whatever you're comfortable with. A little dark under the boat there. I suppose the thing to have in mind is to just be conscious you don't need to paint everything, or you know, just the illusion of detail. And let things melt into each other. That's fine. So now we can go straight into the side of this building. So again, you know, what are we painting here? There's a building off in the distance there, a little bit lighter in value, I think, so I'll just water that down a little bit. More verticals, chimneys, whatever. There's actually another boat there. And the boat, perhaps that's here, is even less important than these ones or this one. So, you know, this could be portrayed by just That could be enough. Leave a little bit of a gap there so this building doesn't run into there, and importantly leave the bead down here to paint this reflection. So we've got, I can't see what it is, it's just machinery, whatever, something there. And that's why I quite like these mid-journey images, because often it's just nonsense that's there, but it looks okay. So we need to keep this building nice and simple, so flat shape. And if you got something like that boat, it's not really looking like anything, just lose it in there, but keep that bead. So I'll just top that up. Let's go towards blue. There's a bit of lavender in there. So the important thing is to keep it nice and light in value. So if we put in a triangle shape there, just connect it all up. And then just like we did here, I tend to just go for a sort of grey, purpley kind of colour. And it's still a little bit damp here, so that's quite good that we can connect that up. And we're just replicating what's going on above here. I'm going to give it a little spray just to keep all this moist. I'm going to just try something, a bit of cadmium red while this is still damp. Experiment with your paintings as well. If I just take a bit of very watery gouache and splash it on here, let's see what effects we get in the sky. So, we've got some figures over here. These are the workers starting to think about going fishing or whatever. He's on the dock there. Coming to join him. What we could do is just anchoring those to the ground with a little bit of a shadow. There's no strong light anywhere, so just something there. So we can bring this painting to a finish now by just adding a few little, perhaps a bit of colour here and there. So maybe a bit of red on that boat. Something there, a bit of red. And a bit of orange into the mix. And I can take a bit of white gouache. A little highlight on these figures. Give them a little bit of importance. Put a bit of light back into some areas. Use this opportunity to just experiment, lifting off a bit of, on dry paper, if I just wet that area, take a clean tissue, and we lift off a little bit there. Practice, colour temperature. If we use some blue against the warm there for the writing on the side of that boat, that looks quite interesting. A bad idea. Maybe just have a few verticals slightly darker in value. It came out quite well. It again looks very detailed, but if you've watched the whole demo, you'll see I didn't really paint any detail, and it's just an illusion. All these little bits and bobs, little flicks here and there, it's nothing. It's just a square, an oblong, a triangle. That's all you got to think. Just make it interesting. A lot of it is to do with the tonal value and the edges. That light values off in the distance with soft edges make them look a long way away. Plus color temperature, they're cool. And then we've got the warmer colours in the foreground, which come forward, stronger contrast, sharper edges, and so on. And this bit over here, where I just flicked on a little bit of watery gouache, it's just created some effects. Have a go with stuff like that. It makes you look like a professional when it comes out well. It won't always, so you do take a bit of a gamble, but you'll get to know what works and what doesn't work. So remember, it's all about contrast, edges, and just make it up. It's half the time we're just overcomplicating watercolor or any kind of painting really by making it more difficult for ourselves than it actually is. But it doesn't have to be. So good luck, and I'll see you on the next video. There you go. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Please do hit the like and subscribe. Check out the links in the description and watch this video next if you enjoyed this one, because you're going to love this one.